me a long time to figure out exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And I figured it out. I want to spend it with you.
All right, y'all, we seriously need to talk because things just took a wild turn. Jim Jones has officially been arrested, and no, this isn't one of those situations that gets swept under the rug in a few days. What's coming to light could shake up everything about his career, his image, and maybe even his freedom. I know what you're thinking. Jim Jones? Arrested? For what exactly? You're not alone. The rumors, the reports, they're all painting a picture that's deeper than just a single misstep. We're talking racketeering, money laundering, and whispers about some heavy behind-the-scenes connections that sound like they're straight out of a Netflix crime doc. Let's start with the racketeering charges, because that's no joke. For those who don't know, racketeering usually means involvement in organized criminal activity. Think fraud, illegal enterprises, and in some cases, even violence. So if the feds are bringing this against Jim, they aren't just suggesting he was brushing shoulders with shady folks. They're implying he might have been running or helping operate a criminal network. And here's the kicker. This didn't come out of nowhere. Jim Jones has long been rumored to have ties to street organizations. Rewind to 2019. Remember when his name surfaced during the Tekashi 6x99 trial? When Tekashi took the stand and basically tied Jim to the Nine Trey Gangsta Bloods? Yeah, that moment sent the internet into a frenzy. Jim stayed quiet on the matter, never directly addressing it, but the speculation has been brewing ever since. Now fast forward to today, and it's not just racketeering making headlines. Money laundering is reportedly on the table too, and that opens a whole new can of worms. Let's talk finances. Over the years, Jim's been involved in a lot. Real estate plays, launching clothing lines, even dabbling in crypto. At first glance, it seemed like smart hustle, diversifying, building, generational wealth. But now, some are questioning whether every dollar was clean or if those ventures were used to move money in ways that caught the Fed's attention. And if there's one thing we all know, it's this. The government doesn't blink when it comes to financial crimes. When they come knocking, they usually come with receipts.
New details tonight about the arrest of rapper Jim Jones in Coweta County this week. Deputies say Jones was a passenger in a car that led police on a brief chase Wednesday night. And when deputies stopped the car, they say they found drugs inside.
Listen, when the feds move, they don't just roll out of bed and decide to make an arrest on a whim. Nah, this kind of thing takes time, strategy, and serious evidence. And word on the street is that they've had Jim Jones in their crosshairs for over a year. That's right, 12 months of quiet observation, building a case, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But here's where things take a wild turn. Some are saying this entire thing might be a setup. According to several sources, Jim didn't just get caught slipping. He's allegedly been under intense surveillance for months. We're talking wiretaps, hidden recordings, eyes in places he didn't even know were watching. And if there's one thing we've learned from high-profile federal cases, it's that when they start pulling out audio receipts and surveillance logs, they're not bluffing. They're coming in with full armor. But let's dig a little deeper, because another theory is starting to make serious noise. The informant angle. In high-stakes investigations like this, it's not unusual for someone from the inside, someone close to the operation, to flip and start feeding the feds information. It's a classic play. And fans are already speculating that someone in Jim's inner circle may have been the leak. Because let's be real, racketeering and money laundering charges don't just materialize out of thin air. If the feds are confident enough to slap him with that kind of weight, it's likely someone's been talking a lot. And this isn't Jim's first brush with the law either. Cast your mind back to 2018, when he was arrested in Georgia after a high-speed police chase. Authorities found illegal items in his vehicle, but Jim ended up taking a plea deal, sidestepping serious time behind bars. But this situation, it's different. The stakes are higher, and federal courts don't play the same plea deal game as the state level. Once they've built a case, they usually want the win. Now let's talk about Chrissy, because you know the internet was watching her every move the moment the news broke. At first, radio silence, no public statements, no Instagram stories. But behind the scenes, word is she's been in full-blown damage control mode, trying to get clarity and figure out just how deep this goes. All right, let's be real. Whenever a rapper gets locked up, the streets start buzzing with one burning question: who snitched? In the world of hip-hop, especially when you're dealing with RICO charges, people don't just assume, it's practically expected, that somebody on the inside started singing. And in Jim Jones's case, word is, he never even saw it coming. See, when the feds come for you, they don't just show up out of the blue with handcuffs and a hope. No, they move like chess players. Quiet, calculated, always 10 steps ahead. Building a RICO case takes time, and they rely heavily on three things: wiretaps, financial records, and yes, inside informants. If you've been following how these cases typically unfold, you'll notice a pattern. There's almost always someone close who flips when the pressure hits. Just take Tekashi 6ix99 for example. His case is basically the modern blueprint. When the feds caught him up in the Nine Trey Gangsta Bloods investigation, he didn't just cooperate, he testified, on record, against people he once called family. And the result? Most of his co-defendants got hit with long sentences, while Tekashi walked away with a drastically reduced bid. Or look back at Alpo Martinez, a major figure in the drug game back in the 80s and 90s. When the feds came knocking, he flipped on his entire operation. That cooperation got him out early, but it also sealed his fate in the streets. That's the kind of trade-off people in these situations face. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Jim's name already got dragged into the Nine Trey mess. During Tekashi's testimony, he straight up identified Jim as part of the organization. Jim stayed silent, didn't confirm, didn't deny, but ever since then the speculation has been thick. Was he already on the feds' radar? Were they just waiting for the right time? Let's pivot to the money trail, because if there's one thing federal agents love, it's following the paper. And in Jim's case, his business dealings may have given them exactly what they needed. Over the years, Jim has diversified his portfolio: real estate investments, clothing lines, and even ventures into cryptocurrency. On the surface, that all screams smart entrepreneur. But to the feds, that might scream something else entirely. Here's why real estate is a known vehicle for money laundering. If large amounts of cash are moving in and out without clear origins, that's a red flag. The feds are trained to look for that. If any of Jim's investments had unexplained capital flow, or if they traced his money back to individuals already under surveillance, it could have triggered a deeper look. And that's when the real surveillance begins. Phone taps, email scans, monitoring social media posts. One suspicious transaction can lead to months of investigation. And once they start connecting financial activity to anything illicit, that's when it goes from rumors to RICO. Now here's where things start to get real messy, because when one domino falls, the feds don't just stop there. They start connecting the dots. And let's not play. It's no secret that Jim Jones is deeply embedded in the hip-hop world, both musically and socially. So the big question now is, who else is on their radar? Let's start with the obvious: Dipset. Jim Jones is one of the foundational members of the iconic Harlem Crew, alongside Cameron, Joel Santana, and Freaky Zeke. For years, Dipset has walked a fine line between rap royalty and street legend status. Their music is raw, unapologetic, and filled with references to street life, real or artistic. It's always been part of their brand. But let's not forget, members of the group have had legal trouble in the past. Joel Santana, for instance, made headlines back in 2018 when he was arrested for trying to bring a loaded gun through airport security. While that case was unrelated to anything happening now, it still put a spotlight on the group. And feds don't forget, but Dipset isn't the only connection Jim has. Over the years, he's built strong relationships with some of the biggest names in the game: Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, Meek Mill, Rick Ross. The list goes on. And when the feds are building a case, they don't just look at the person in handcuffs. They trace every call, every email, every transaction. If Jim had any questionable business dealings, they're going to start peeling back every layer. And anyone he's partnered with, even indirectly, could end up under the microscope. Now let's switch gears for a moment. That mugshot. When Jim's booking photo hit the internet, fans were expecting a defeated look, maybe even regret. But what did we get? A calm, almost confident expression. Dare we say, a smirk. He didn't look worried. He looked ready. And naturally, the internet had a field day with it. Think about it. Most people getting arrested look either mad, scared, or downright exhausted. But Jim's mugshot looked like he was posing for a mixtape cover. It's not unprecedented, though. Remember Gucci Mane's now iconic mugshot? Man looked like he was about to drop the hardest album of the year. Or 21 Savage, who kept his cool demeanor even when picked up by ICE. And then there's Young Thug. Stoic, unreadable, even while facing major charges. So what's up with Jim? There are a few theories. Maybe he knew this was coming. After all, if the feds had eyes on him for over a year, there's a good chance he was aware the walls were closing in. Or maybe his legal team already has a strategy locked and loaded, and he's walking into the storm with a game face on. But here's the twist. Is that confidence genuine? Or just for the cameras? Because no matter how cool you look in a mugshot, if the feds have the goods, no amount of composure is going to stop what's coming next. Now here's the million-dollar question. Is Jim Jones really going down for this? Or is he about to pull off one of the boldest comebacks we've seen in hip-hop history? Because let's be honest, some people do beat these charges, but others, not so lucky. And when the feds are involved, the odds shift fast. So let's break down the 3 most likely outcomes, the ones everybody's whispering about right now. Option 1, the plea deal. This is the route a lot of high-profile names take. When the evidence is stacked and the case is airtight, pleading out can be the smartest move. Jim might decide to take a reduced sentence instead of gambling in court and risking a heavy bid. Think damage control. Take a hit now to avoid a knockout later. Option 2, he fights it. If Jim and his legal team believe they've got a strong defense, he could take this all the way to trial. That's a bold move, no doubt, but it's also high stakes. Because if he loses, the sentencing could be devastating. This isn't state court, we're talking federal time. Option 3, this snowballs. If Jim is part of something bigger, the feds might not stop with him. His case could be just the beginning. If they suspect a larger network, more names could be on the chopping block. This could open up an entire new wave of investigations and arrests. Now let's talk about Chrissy. If you know their story, you already know. She's been his ride or die for years. Through U-piece, downs, cameras, and chaos, Chrissy stood by Jim. But trials bring pressure. If things get ugly, will she continue holding it down? Or will we see her step into the spotlight and speak out? So what do you think? Was Jim set up? Is he guilty? And will Chrissy stick through the storm once again?